Okay.
We'll be ready and later.
Good afternoon and welcome to all the councillors today and our staff and those online. We'll begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we met today and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And we extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are here today. I ask the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mead, to please read the prayer.
Mayor, you may stand for prayer. Almighty God, we humbly beseech your blessing on the council, direct and prosperous deliberations for the welfare of the people of the Moyne Shire. Amen.
Just a note on live streaming of council meetings. It's important to note that today's meeting is being live streamed and can be viewed by the general public via council's Facebook page or when later uploaded to council's website. By participating in and addressing those present at the meeting, you consent to any information you disclose, including any personal information or sensitive information being recorded and uploaded to the website. Do we have any apologies for today's meeting?
Through you, Mayor, Ed Small.
Thank you. Our Director of Community, Corporate and Governance is an apology. Councillor Damien Gleeson is expected a little late today. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest, please? Note. There are none. I now move to the minutes from the July 25 Ordinary Council meeting, and I'll call for a mover to confirm those minutes of a true and accurate record, please. Thank you, Councillor Pinsell, and seconded by Councillor Smith. Thank you. Is there any discussion in relation to the minutes? Okay, no, I'll just put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. 0. Sorry, 0. Thank you. For that correction. We have no public participants registered for today, so we can move straight into the agenda proper. And we'll begin with item 2.1, which is the monthly financial performance report for July. And I'll ask our Acting Director of Community, Corporate and Governance, Mr. Craig Ralston, please.
Through you, Mayor, this report recommends that Council receive the monthly financial report for July 2023. This is the first report for the new financial year. In addition to receiving the report, it is recommended that Council approves the 2 variations listed in section 5 of the report. This includes works at the Caravan Park, amenity block of 35,000 and 100,000 for the work at the former SES site in Port Fairy to remove buildings and provide gravel cover for car parking and undertake an environmental study. The recommendation is before Council.
Thank you, Mr. Ralston. Questions from councillors? Comments? Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in regard to the budget variations, while I'll be supporting both of them, and I would like to see the variations, more detail provided on the variations, and probably as an agenda item rather than just as a single line item. But as I said, I certainly won't be voting against it or opposing those, but I think it's just they're significant amounts of money, and I think we don't give it enough attention by just including them in here as variations.
We can ask Mr. Davis to note that for a future discussion.
Noted.
Thank you. Other questions in relation to the finance report? There being none, I will call for.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor, not necessarily in regard to the finance report, but into the results for the year end. When are we likely to see the year end results? And do we have any early predictions of what they're going to look like?
Good afternoon.
Through you, Mayor, so the year end results, cash results will come to a future workshop in September, and estimated favourable result is around $1 million, approximately $1 million.
Thank you. Well done.
If there are no further,
Thank you, Mayor. In the income statement under sale of assets, we've got a $510,000 figure. Could you tell us what we're going to sell to that amount, or is it made up of small amounts? Is it some property that we're trying to get rid of? Those little old tennis courts, etc., or is it something one larger piece?
Through you, Mayor, so the sale of assets relates to the plant, sale of plant items. So when we purchase new plant, we trade in existing items of plant, so they're trade-ins of existing plant.
So if I read this correctly, we're gonna make 510,000 profit out of the sale of plant. Because if we sell plant, we usually trade it in or sell it and replace it. So is that the way I read it?
Through you, Mayor, that's correct. So that is the profit on the sale of plant.
So we've already know what the profit is before we sell it.
Through you, Mayor, that's an estimate, so we won't know until we actually.
All right, so it's a guide.
That's right, it's the budget. That's
Okay.
the figure.
Thank you. That fixes it.
Thank you. All right, so I'll now seek a mover for the recommendation before us. Please. Councillor Mead, seconded. Councillor Purcell, thank you. Councillor Mead.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Ralston, for presenting this report. It's obviously only early stages for month of July, so not a lot has happened or is abnormal at this point in time. So look forward to starting to see the capital works back in there for next month and getting the ball rolling on them, but also receiving the previous financial year's results.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell.
Just briefly, Mayor, I'd like to again congratulate the team on the work they do in keeping our finances in order. We've been very lucky over a number of years to have a good finance department, and it's good to see they're continuing that work.
Well said. Any other councillors want to speak for or against this motion? We'll come back to you, Councillor Mead.
Further debate,
Right,
thanks.
I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. That is carried 6-0. Thank you. Item 2.2, Audit and Risk Committee, the unconfirmed minutes from the July 12 meeting of that committee. Again, Mr. Ralston, please.
Mayor, so yes, this report recommends that council receive the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee held on the 12th of July, 2023. Happy to take any questions, but the recommendation is before council.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have questions in relation to the minutes of this meeting? All right, Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in regard to 2.4, the report there, which is unused, in particular the unused excessive annual leave. If the CEO could explain how, where we are and what we're doing about that.
Mr. Davis.
Through you, Mayor, through the pandemic period, we had a lot of staff accruing leave and not necessarily taking leave, and so it's now a period of trying to work with and encourage those staff members to actually take leave, as it's something that we all could do with from time to time, and bring those entitlements or bring the annual leave down to a reasonable level. It's ongoing and monitored review around our audit and risk requirements as to outstanding balances and what's owed.
Thank you. And the second one, Mayor, if I may?
Go ahead.
5.2, the fraud incident. There's been some interest in regard to this, and a number of people have raised to me and believe that the amount involved is significant. And I know it's all significant, but if the CEO could just give us an update in regard to that particular incident.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Purcell. I can advise the council that the fraud amount referred to is $500. So it is very much at the low end of the spectrum in terms of suspected fraud. Council has a zero tolerance for any fraud and corruption. It's been reported to the authorities, and in this case, we're awaiting the outcomes of that investigation. We are required and entitled to let you know and report that through our audit and risk requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, I'm seeking a mover, please, for the FO unconfirmed minutes. See, thank you. Oh,
I think I should do that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
okay, thank you, councillor Dukas, seconded by councillor Purcell. And I'll just briefly pause to welcome councillor Damien Gleeson to the meeting. Hope you can hear us okay. Perfect. Okay, councillor Dukas.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. As it's been discussed at the meeting and plus at our workshop, etc., the fraud incident which some people have alluded to has been explained. Not good to see, but things do happen from time to time. Otherwise, it's a good report, and the Audit and Risk Committee do a very good job.
Councillor Dukas, councillor Purcell.
Just echo councillor Dukas' remark. It's one of our most important committees, and again, as I said about the finance committee, the audit committee, we're very lucky to have them and the work they do.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak for or against this motion? No, in that case, I'll come back to you, councillor Dukas.
No need, Madam Mayor.
No, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. That is carried 6-7-0. Thank you. Moving to 2.3, fraud and corruption control system and policy. Mr. Ruston, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
Mayor, so this report recommends that council approve and adopt the fraud prevention and control framework policy. The fraud and corruption framework establishes the system and process for the prevention, identification, and responding to potential acts of fraud and corruption in a manner that is timely and appropriate. The Audit and Risk Committee at its meeting on the 12th of July endorsed the policy and have recommended to council for adoption. The updated policy will be communicated to all staff following the adoption as part of the staff awareness training, and formal training is also undertaken every 2 years. The recommendation is before council.
Thanks, Mr. Ruston. Very timely. Do we have questions, clarification needed around this? Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just in regard to the introduction on the, it's probably the third paragraph. It says it relates to employees. Are councillors regarded as a part of that?
Yes, councillors are included in that policy.
So this applies to councillors as well.
And councils.
Thank you very much.
Further questions? No, okay. The opposite recommendation is that council approve and adopt this fraud prevention and control framework and policy. I'm seeking mover, please. Councillor Dukas, and seconded by councillor Smith. Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, in conjunction with the Audit and Risk Committee, the Shire Executive, etc., it's a detailed report, as it should be. I think the one thing that we can be sure of that the employees and any new employees are rigorously taken through the fraud and corruption policies and procedures. No such thing as perfect or 100%, but I think the amount of work that's gone into this gives us plenty of security and peace of mind that the likelihood of something happening in that field, whether it's be fraud, corruption or both, is highly unlikely. So highly recommended, and thank those people that put this policy to work. You know, our picture partners, I think, were the ones that helped us at one stage, the fraud and the assets committee, audit and assets committee, Mr. Ralston, CEO, and the councillors involved, to a compact and precise document that the community can have a lot of satisfaction in, that anything to do with fraud and corruption will be highly unlikely to happen in the Moyne Shire.
Thanks, councillor Dukas. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Further to what Councillor Dukas said, this is a comprehensive document that will move us forward for the next number of years to, as they say, prevention, identification, management and prosecution of fraud within the Shire. So a good document to bring things into line and bring us up to date to move us forward.
Thanks, councillor Smith. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or against this motion? No? Do you want to sum up any further?
No need, Madam Mayor. I hope I've covered it.
Beautifully. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. That is carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. Item 2.4, festival and event funding for the current financial year. I'll ask our Director of Environment, Economy and Place, it's Jodie McNamara, to introduce, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this report provides a review of applications received for the 2023-24 Festival and Events Funding Program. The program's been provided for within Council's budget for this year. The funding program has been well taken up and has in fact been oversubscribed this time. The total output for the events applied for equates to about 830,000, which is a direct investment into community organisations and the Moyne Shire economy. We have had one event withdrawal since the program was opened, which does leave us with a balance fund of about $5,000. We have the recommendation in front of you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms McNamara. The questions around this one. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. To clarify, are we moving this motion or the alternative?
Depends on what we get to, which. Councillor Gleeson.
Mayor, look, I know it's a little bit irregular, but my late appearance, I have a conflict of interest in relation to item 11 in this. It's only specific to item 11. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Appreciate it. Thank you. Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And note that the applications were oversubscribed, and a number of the events we've actually allocated less than what they have requested. I just asked Ms McNamara whether that will compromise any of the events, or whether the event organisers have been contacted to see what the effect would be.
Ms McNamara.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question. We have, or our officers have been in touch with the event organisers to let them know what the likely outcome may be. We are of the understanding that the events will continue to be rolled out, and we fully endorse and support those events going forward.
Thank you. Further questions? No, well, we do have a recommendation before us that we endorse funding for the Festival and Event Program for 2023-24 as outlined in the report. Councillor Purcell, happy to move that? Or
No, if I may, Mayor, I would like to move a motion that says the council approve funding for events and festivals to the value of 104,320 as outlined in the report, and reserve a balance of 5,680 for future events and festival requirements as they arise.
Thank you, Councillor Purcell. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mead. Thank you. Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The motion that I've just read is because one of the events have pulled out. So we do have, as Ms McNamara said, we have a balance of over $5,000, and I think it's reasonable that we set that aside for, as it's been said earlier, a rainy day. So more than, I think it's a good motion. The events themselves, it's one of the things that this Shire has done really well for a long period of time. And we are well known for the quality of events that are actually run within this Shire. So I think for us to continue to fund these events, and it's good, even though it was oversubscribed, that all of the events will continue to be held, and I'm sure they'll be run extremely successfully. So it's a pleasure to recommend that we allocate this money as per this report.
Thanks, Councillor Purcell. Councillor Mead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Purcell's comments as he moved. The motion was put forward with a slight change. Yeah, thanks very much for the team that have gone through this, particularly difficult this year because of the almost double subscription amount, which is great to see such a healthy events within the event Shire, Great Shire of Moyne. And it's difficult to try and not give everyone the full amount, but I think there's a fair spread across the events that are listed there. It's 20 4 events that are going to receive some funding throughout the year, and also a really good spread across the Shire. There's 4 in Koroit, 4 in Mortlake, including the Mortlake Cup, the Christmas Carols in Mortlake, the Mortlake Gift Running Race as well. So, and also there's the Ringle Men's Breakfast. So it's a really good spread, and I think it's another, along with the Community Systems Fund, this Festival and Events Fund is a great way we can support our community groups. But it also brings a lot of money back into the Shire. I think the estimate is there up to over 800,000 spend from our 105,000 investment. So really good return there for our communities.
Thanks, Councillor Mead. Opportunity now for other councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Purcell and Councillor Mead's comments, and I really wrestled with this over the last few weeks, and we've had many fruitful discussions and been so conflicted. I've written a little prepared statement here, which I'm going to read out. Amidst these tough financial times, I wholeheartedly support the motion, and whilst it's a shame to see a reduction in some of the offerings to events from the Shire, there is a responsibility of the events to become financially sustainable. Our community thrives on festivals that unite us, celebrating our local talent and boosting our economy. Despite challenges, this program constantly injects vitality into our Shire, fostering connections and energizing our community. Approving this funding shows our commitment to our cultural fabric, even during financial constraints. These events educate, inspire, and unite residents and visitors, fostering dialogue and pride. Festivals and Events funding program remains a crucial local economic driver, benefiting businesses, accommodation and services. This commitment invests in our collective future, extending beyond finances. I'd like to congratulate the officers and all their hard work liaising with all the events, and also thank those the committee and those events for their ongoing work. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Lockett. Any other councillors want me to speak for or against? Councillor Lucas.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wholeheartedly agree with all the previous speakers, but maybe we should introduce the lady that done a lot of the hard work. I believe you're the manager of whatever. So
Kate Lindsay. Well,
Kate Lindsay, hello, Kate.
Whatever.
So yeah, well,
The manager of whatever.
well, it's not the manager of festival events, it's the manager of.
So I'm the coordinator of economic development and tourism.
There we go. So Kate's the heart of the whole operation. So
That's not true.
yeah, it is good.
Our events officer, Elise Plungers, has pulled all of this together and has managed our festival and events fund for a number of years. So a shout out to Elise, who's done a
Shout out to Elise. So it's good that someone can come along that we can recognise who work behind the scenes. As everyone's spoken before, it sounds terrific that we can stand here or sit here and hand out all this money, but it needs to be assessed through whatever the rules and regulations are. And it's not easy because some people ask for a lot of money and others ask for a little, and you've got to go through the rules and regulations. So well done to you, Elise, and the department. And I'm sure that the people of Moyne Shire, not only the festival and events people that are putting on all these shows, but the public that go to them, appreciate the work you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. Councillor Dukas, absolutely. Well done, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other councillors wishing to speak for or against, I'll come back to you, Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, it is great to be able to continue with this because a lot of the festivals and events have said that a lot of their other sources have dried up. Times are really tough. And we've had a tough budget and we have to be certainly constrained in the way we allocate our funds, but this is a great event and it's a great thing that the Shire do, and it's good to be able to find this money to continue with this funding. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purcell. I'll now put the alternate motion that Councillor Purcell has moved to the vote. Those in favour, please. Carried 7-0. Thank you, councillors. Item 2.5 is our heavy and light fleet policy, and I'll call on our Director of Assets and Community, Ms. Edith Farrell, please.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So the heavy and light fleet policy before you is really about how we maintain a fit for purpose fleet, meeting all our legal, financial and environmental sustainability obligations. The policies were a result of an audit undertaken by our internal auditors last year. They identified a number of key areas for improvement, which the policies have picked up on. And one of the significant outcomes being the development of the heavy fleet policy. So that is a new policy being presented to council. The recommendations are before you in terms of accepting those policies.
Thank you, Ms Farrell. Councillors, questions? No, thank you. All right, we do have a recommendation before us. I'll second mover, please.
Sorry, through your man, councillor Gleeson.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Gleeson, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Within the report, it just states that there's no light fleet management software system. Now, I was just wondering, a lot of our work is in collaboration with the other local governments, in particular the Glenelg, with the Corangamite and Moyne. With the update of all the computer systems and things that we're going through, is there a possibility to include an appropriate software management system within that update that's currently proceeding?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Gleeson. So absolutely, and I think we've referenced in the report somewhere that we are looking at collaborative opportunities for the purchase of software system or piggybacking onto somebody else's existing system. So we will absolutely be looking at that.
Thank you.
Councillor Dukas, did you have a question?
No,
No.
thank you.
No, okay. So I am seeking a mover. This motion, please.
That was me.
That was you, Councillor Dukas. You know something.
I want to roll
And
today.
seconded, Councillor Gleeson. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, as it says, heavy and light fleet policy, it's been done to death, which is good. And as we've heard from Ms Farrell, there's the opportunity, not only the opportunity, there is a willingness to go forward with the software system to help manage both the light and heavy fleet. And I think from a Moyne Shire perspective and from the ratepayers, anything that helps manage the fleet, whether it be from a little ute or car that someone drives around with to a semi-trailer or a tip truck or a grader, anything that manages that, whether it's operational or maintenance-wise or anything else, driver fatigue, things like that, cover the whole gamut of what goes on with our light and heavy fleet. To make it better and more accountable is a good thing. So highly recommend that this policy be supported, and going forward we should see a vast improvement in the way that things are done. And I think the outcome would be a cheaper operation of the whole light and fleet operation of the Moyne Shire.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Supporting Councillor Dukas, I'd just like to read a little quote from the report. A well-managed fleet provides for business continuity, staff safety and good return on investment. Very well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gleeson. Any councillors wanting to speak for or against the motion? No, do you wish to sum up?
No,
Councillor
no need,
Dukas?
Madam Mayor.
Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried 7-0. Thank you. Item 2.6, a very procedural meeting today. Surplus goods and materials policy. Again with you, Ms Farrell.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So this policy is essentially a companion policy to our asset sales and disposal policy, but really aim to address a set of criteria and more transparency around the process for disposal of leftover or surplus materials that are deemed to have little or no value. So there is an attachment to the policy that deals with how we either dispose or donate of goods, and importantly, that consent form deals with covering council in terms of any liability and sets out the conditions by which we would dispose. So the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Farrell. Again, we have spoken about this, but are there questions from councillors? Councillor Gleeson.
Mayor, I haven't got access to the notes. Oh, I've got my notes, but I haven't got access to the motion. You may have done this morning. Should there an and be, the council endorse a policy and proceed to community? Has that been picked up?
Well spotted, councillor Gleeson, you're right. It should read the council endorse the surplus goods and materials policy and proceed to undertaking community consultation prior to formal adoption of the policy. I think
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just had that written in capital letters, so thank you.
Eagle eyes. Okay, if there are no further questions, I've just read out the recommendation before us. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, councillor Lockett. Seconded, councillor Gleeson. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we've gone through this thoroughly, and I might point out that the possibility of the beautiful paisley curtains which once hung up in these very walls may be included in this policy, which is very exciting for people that like paisley, I suppose. And yeah, again, we're quite rigorous with our policy, so good to see. As Mayor pointed out, very procedural.
Yes.
Meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a seconder, councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, sorry I wasn't privy to the workshop, so I don't want to repeat a lot of the stuff that's probably been done. Just within the document, it says its intent is to safeguard the organisation and individuals and to ensure transparency. I mean, that's the foundation on which we build our council and what we try to provide to the residents of the Shire. So a very good document and very clear in its intent. So thank you.
Councillor Gleeson. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or against? No, I'll come back to you, councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. No further need.
Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. Carried 7-0. Item 3.1 is the Mayor and Councillors' reports. It is before you. I'll now call for any comments or questions on those meetings. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question with regard to the meeting on the 12th of July with Senator Ralph Ciccone. How that went and the opportunities for the future to work with the Senator.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Mead. It was a really productive, positive meeting with the CEO and I. The Senator Ciccone is essentially a duty senator for our part of Victoria, and he was travelling through the region to meet various stakeholders. I think we came away from that. He was very generous with his time, a good hour or so together. We came away with that. He had a greater understanding of the issues impacting Moyne Shire and the challenges we have ahead. We also discussed future visits to Canberra, to Federal Parliament, which he has offered to assist with. So it was a really positive meeting. Mr. Davis, do you have anything you want to add to that?
For you, Minna, I think you covered it all.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, so there are no councillor notices of motion presented for this meeting. Item 3.3 is general matters. Do you have any items the councillors would like to raise? If not, I think it's important that we as a council acknowledge and note the passing of our local government colleague from Southern Grampian Shire Council, Councillor Greg McAdam, who passed away recently. And I think on behalf of council, I'd like to extend our condolences to Greg's family and also to his council colleagues, because I certainly met Greg a few times, and I think he was known as a genuine and very passionate community advocate. So a very sad loss for our region.
Yeah.
Anything else for general business that we should note? Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just somber in remembering Councillor McAdam, and I just thought that I might mention that it's former Councillor Mayor Mick Wolf's birthday today. And so I've been in touch with Cynthia this morning, and we just remember Mick today.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Gleeson, for mentioning that. Great man. I just wanted to do a big shout out to the Mortlake and District Kindergarten, excuse me, for having achieved the highest rank under the National Quality Framework. That's phenomenal. So what a great effort by them. Big congratulations, and to all the kindergartens in the Shire. They do a wonderful job in a difficult time with, staff shortages and things like that. To, achieve that top rank is phenomenal. So shout out to them.
Absolutely, it was a great result. Thank you. Anything further? No, okay. We now move to urgent business. Councillors, do you have any items that you wish to raise? Urgently? No. Item 4, CEO meeting schedule. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. A busy month, out and about with a number of meetings. Once I call out, there's certainly been a lot in the IBAC Operation Sandon debate since the report was tabled. So there's been a number of CEO gatherings and MAB meetings with regards to possible outcomes with that. So we all stay tuned about how the 34 recommendations will be delivered. I had the opportunity to attend the Chief Officers Group, and I thank Council for their support there. And that was a really good meeting of Chief Officers from around the country, discussing particularly the issues confronting local government with regard to financial sustainability, workforce and housing. We're not alone, we're not immune to it. It is across the board. So looking at different strategies as to how we can actually promote and encourage people that local government is actually a great place to be and work and serve your community. And that's not only in paid employment for people that do that, but also our volunteers as well, which are certainly decreasing rather than increasing. And we also had a very good meeting with Moyne Health. We have regular updates there about progression of their plans with regards to some of their services basic in both Port Fairy and Koroit.
Busy month. Any questions? Councillor Mead.
Mayor, just a question, Mr. Davis, on the 7th of August virtual meeting with the VicGrid wine briefing with the transmission planning.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mead. So VicGrid are at the moment at a consultation phase across the board with regards to the future look and the shape of transmission planning across the state. It was a meeting that was across the board with a number of councils outlining from DECA, in which they're based, as to how they intend to roll out the next phase of renewable energy zone planning with regard to the transmission side. So this wasn't the renewables or the wind farm side, this is the connection and how that goes forward. Certainly there's, Mortlake's in the mix there with the turn in and the existing infrastructure, but they've also got the challenges of the other side of the state as well, in which they need to install and roll out some of this infrastructure if we're to meet the renewable energy targets set by the government.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And just a follow-up question for the 2nd of August, the Great South Coast Food and Fibre Regional Value Add meeting. What opportunities might be there for Moyne agriculture in that regard?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you again, Councillor Mead. So yeah, that is actually around positioning Moyne Shire, particularly with its strong agricultural output and focus and delivery in the dairy side of things, but also agriculture across the board, as we know, which is our biggest industry, about positioning it amongst the Great South Coast as an opportunity for investment and innovation as we go forward. So there's a number of initiatives that the Food and Fibre Great South Coast Group are working on, ranging from water resilience and dealing with water differently, but also around what they're calling agriculture 2.0, which is that next phase of where agriculture goes into the future.
Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just interested in Mr. Davis's comments regarding IBAC and wondering whether there's any early lessons that we need to be prepared for in regard to IBAC.
Through you, Mayor. It's 34 of them, Councillor Purcell. No, look, on a much serious note, it is a very serious issue. There is a lot of discussion in around governance rules and the way they should be modelled across the state for consistency. Our governance team will be bringing that back into this council very shortly around some of the more immediate requirements. The way in which council meetings are recorded and reported is one of those front and centre, as is the way in which remuneration committees are also worked with regards to the hiring or otherwise of CEOs as well in the mix, and the due diligence around conflicts and planning. You know, that they are the sort of centerpieces of this, where there was in fact alleged and improprieties around major planning decisions within one particular council, but the ramifications affect us all. We're working as a small group of CEOs with the MAV to really advocate to government that we are the subject matter experts in local government. Don't just put us to one side with some of the forecast changes. We've met with David Wolf, the IBAC Commissioner, and
last comments. I see on August the 16th, there was a MAV Planning Advisory Group meeting. Was there anything came out of that could have been relevant to Moyne?
through you, Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Smith. It was really around forecasting what the potential changes that the state government are talking about could be. We are yet to see the detail of that, other than one of the IBAC recommendations was to take some planning powers off local government. So it was a gathering with MAV members as to, well, what does that look like and what can we as a group advocate back to government around? Because one bad instance shouldn't necessarily affect the whole state with those decisions. So it was putting together some positioning around that we're the subject matter experts, and we should they should be using that knowledge to help form where planning goes. But we understand that there's a set state government agenda as well that we'll need to work with regards to planning. There's soon to be a regional housing statement and Plan Victoria that will be brought into the system, and we wait to see the details of that.
Thank you.
Councillor Purcell.
Just if I may, Mayor, just to follow up from that, do you negotiate with the local government minister, the individual ministers, the IBAC, you know, because you've got housing, we've got planning, there's all sorts of areas and recommendations through that. So how do you do that back to government?
Through you, Mayor, that's a great question. Again, Councillor Purcell, on the planning side of it, it has been through the MAV and their new CEO, Kelly Grigsby, who's a former local government CEO as well. So it's about us welcoming reforms that are talked about, but then hopefully getting that audience with the local government minister, the planning minister, and others. What we don't know at this stage is what the shape and look of the reforms are. There is nothing that has been offered to particularly local government, but it is, from understanding, it is imminent. And the reforms really need to distinguish on the planning side around what is strategic and what is statutory, because at the moment it's just grouped as planning and we don't quite know the ins and outs of that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gleeson, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Just as CEO, Mr. Davis, I certainly encourage you to go out to meet as many people as you possibly can. And in your report, you mentioned you had time with Jerry Ryan, OAM. If anybody knows anything about regional Victoria and housing and all those things, certainly Mr. Jaco does. was there just one thing that he might have been able to give you that could help us?
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for your question, Councillor Gleeson. It was an impromptu visit from Jerry, and he certainly, I guess, looked at the room and encouraged them to back themselves in. And as people that are in the region, it's up to the regions to actually form the solutions and not sit back and wait. So in terms of perhaps the pace of decision making and how to forge things through, he was very forthright in that advice.
Thank you. So just as a follow-up within your report again then, and probably including Director McNamara in this, all our building applications that come through are done privately, but we've got a lot of permits on the board, on the books. Ms. McNamara, I know you've really tried to streamline things and get some things happening, but I guess when I look at the report on page 205, we can't get our permits below 100. The applications that we've got on the books, and in light of all the things that Mr. Davis has just said, how do we get these things? How do we get this number down? How do we get this these permits issued and moved quickly?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Gleeson. It's definitely something that we are aiming to improve on as a team. Oftentimes there are complexities with applications that might mean they are there for a little bit longer, but we are endeavouring to improve our systems, and we're hoping that some new technology and different ways of approaching our files might assist in that, but we are definitely working towards that, I can assure you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dukas.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have a full complement of planners? Or are we still looking? I don't know, at one stage we were.
Through you, Mayor, like a lot of line items of council, workforce is a challenge. So no, we're not at full complement. I'm pleased to say that I think we've got someone else just about to join at a more senior level. So that will go some way to helping that coordination in that unit. It's a credit to them for actually continuing to turn out the numbers. You see the variances, and that is really around workforce and availability. So we're not running at full quota yet, but we're not now far off.
Okay, thank you. Because most of my phone calls are about planning, and people are understanding when they know you're understaffed, which you now. A couple of questions. To Ms. McNamara, the anomalies, that's the word, in our planning system that we were working on, has that been completed or is it in process?
Through you, Mayor, the anomalies or corrections amendment.
That's it?
Yes, it is still in process. We are working on some fine tuning of mapping that's getting close, and with the department to ensure that progresses. We're on it. It's been a little while, but we are checking regularly to make sure it progresses.
Okay, and that would help. The reason I ask, that would help the men's shed in Croyd are desperate for a building somewhere. And I've been talking to myself and to Miss Farrell, etc., and to the mayor. They need somewhere. There is talk that once these corrections are done, there could be a chance that they could purchase some land off the Ag Society or come to arrangement with them. So that would, once this is ticked off, that would help them in that regard.
Through you, Mayor, that particular site is included within that amendment.
Right, thank you. And now my memory's working. That also includes the cemetery down at Noranda.
Through you, Mayor, yes, it does.
Okay. That's good. I'm glad, because they've been waiting with bated breath. So it's all ahead full in that department. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've moved on to item 5 here as well. So is there anything here in particular you'd like to draw our attention to, Mr. Davis, in your activities report?
Through you, Mayor, I'll just give you one more, or two more, if you'll indulge. The first one is meeting with our teams I've had a great couple of sessions recently with our library service teams and also council's early years and education care team. It's great to just engage with the staff and just get the questions from them and work through about the opportunities they see and the challenges they're facing in their respective sectors. There'll be a report coming to an upcoming council meeting with regards to the library services in that regard. And the other one I wanted to call out was probably happy to take questions after that. You know, our disability access and inclusion planning is well progressed. There's been focus groups meeting over July. They've collated the data and they're looking to really determine the level of proposed actions and where we sit in that delivery. We're aiming to present that to councillors in October. So some good work there.
I would just like to draw attention to the media stats and thank our team headed by Jared Woolley, because I think the last few months the stats are just going up, and I think it shows that we're getting the message out, we're getting the word out, we're communicating proactively both on social media and also in mainstream media. So a shout out to the media team for their consistent work in that regard. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with those comments. Well done to the team there. It's important that we strong communication base with our community. Just a question for Mr. Davis around links to the Swanson's Lane wind farm, proposed wind farm. And at the last meeting, there was a public presentation from Mr. Joseph Kennedy with several questions regarding the protection of agricultural land in the planning policy from renewable energy. Just wondering if there's an update and any responses to that, please, Mr. Davis.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mead. We've reached out to Mr. Kennedy post that presentation. I'm pleased to advise, you know, the Amendment C70, which is our rural housing strategy, was also designed to sort of further enhance the economic and agricultural components. It was discussed at that last presentation, you know, the challenge we've got around the renewables push versus the protection of agricultural. C70 provides some more weight there in regards to agricultural land. We are awaiting approval of C70. It is in with the minister, but that work's been done, consulted and gone through those checkposts. And we'll continue to advocate to the state with regards to the importance of our agricultural land in light of the wind farm projects that continually come to this shire and trying to find that balance.
Can I just clarify? I may have to take on notice, Mr. Davis, but will that C70 amendment help in this particular case?
In this particular case, I would take that on notice. I couldn't answer that offhand, but I am aware that there's an application that's now currently live for Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Anything finally on the CEO report, Councillor Dukas?
Thank you. Looking through the wind farms, I note that Morton's Lane isn't in here somewhere. Could we get an update next workshop on Morton's Lane, please?
Can do.
Okay. Nothing further. That brings us to the end of our open agenda, and I call for a motion to close the open meeting so that we can consider the single confidential item that we have before us. Thank you, Councillor Mead. Seconded. Councillor Smith. All those in favour, please. Thank you, and I thank those who have been watching online. And Councillor Gleeson, we note that you have a conflict of interest in relation to this confidential item. So we'll say goodbye.
I was just going to express my conflict of interest, and I'll check out as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.